All right, welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus chapter 17. Again, welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus chapter 17. Good to be back. And we spoke a few weeks back about if a person, a Kohen, would shecht, would ritually slaughter an animal outside the tent of meeting, right, which was forbidden, right? So we spoke about that, and we spoke about the idea that person going to get spiritually cut off, right, as well for doing so. So now we're actually going to see that in the verse, because the Torah says, right, the Torah here says, if I find it here, it says, El Pesach, Oil Moed, Lo Eviu La'akriv, Korban, L'Hashem, Lifnei Mishkan Hashem, Dam Yechashev Le'ish, Ahu Dam Shafach, V'nichras Ha'ish, Ahu Mekerev Amos. The Torah says again, Book of Leviticus chapter 17, Book of Leviticus chapter 17, verse 4. It says, he has not brought it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to bring it as an offering to Hashem. So if he didn't bring it there, right, before the tabernacle of Hashem, which eventually became the base of Mikdash, the temple, it shall be considered as blood for that man. In other words, he's liable over here, and he has spilled blood, and that man shall be cut off from his people. So we have to see what it means. It's considered as blood, and what it means he's spiritually cut off. Right? The Rashi over here says, what does it mean? It shall be considered as blood. It's one who shed blood of a human being, for which one pays with their life. That penalty. In other words, you shed innocent blood over here, or you shed blood in the wrong way. You ritually slaughtered in a place where you're not allowed to. So it's like you shed human blood. It's like you shed human blood over here, and you get spiritually cut off. Now, the problem is, Rashi says, first of all, it shall be considered as blood. Now, do we take that literally? Do we look at that as being something literal? So no. Why? Because blood of an animal slaughtered outside the tabernacle is considered blood. Right? It is considered blood over here. So what does it mean? So what does it mean it shall be considered as blood? What do you mean? Either it is or it's not. Right? Either you tell me it's considered like blood or not. So here it means the blood of the animal is considered somewhat, again, not exactly, like the blood of a man. Meaning, just like you're punished with death for killing a man, so too, right? Did you get death penalty? Right? So too, you're punished with causing premature death for slaughtering this animal outside the courtyard. Right? So in other words, we're looking at it in the sense, it's like you shed the blood of a human being, get spiritually cut off. Yeah, that's one explanation. Then he says, it's considered as blood for that man. He has spilled blood. Again. Right? What's going on over here? So we explained that's like he killed the person. He gets spiritually cut off. But now what does it mean? He spilled blood. Meaning, Rashi says, to include the punishment stated by the verse, right? It says, Azarek damim bachutz. Someone who sprinkles blood of an offering outside of the grounds of the base of Mikdash. Right? As if to say that that's going to be included in the punishment. You spill blood where you shouldn't have. Right? Over here. So the verse over here speaks about when to slaughter an animal. Right? The Gemara says in Zvachim 107a, right? It speaks of someone who slaughters an animal. I.e., you spilled its blood, very good. But superfluously, over here, it stated that what? That you made the sprinkling of the blood of the offering outside the grounds of the base of Mikdash. In other words, you sprinkled the blood in a place you weren't supposed to, right? Which is going to be totally forbidden over here, right? Not only that, you slaughtered it, right? You slaughtered it, you sprinkled the blood in a place you weren't supposed to, and that's forbidden, right? That is going to be forbidden. That's going to be forbidden over here. Now, so that explains, the Rashi explains over here what it means. he spilled blood. Sorry, it's considered as blood for that man, i.e., why is he guilty? Right? Why is he guilty over here? And he spilled blood. Right? Meaning he sprinkled blood somewhere where he shouldn't. Right? So it explains Rashi. So one thing we'll mention over here is the fact that you're going to get cut off from your people. Spiritually cut off means two different definitions. One is either premature death, right? In other words, you'll die young. Or it could be that your kids will die in your lifetime. Right? Also, potentially that's what it means. Right? In other words, spiritually being cut off doesn't just mean you lose your portion of the world to come. That's a given. Right? That would be a given without repentance. But it means premature death. Either you die young, your kids die young, right? Etc. Right? So that's what Kares over here represents. Now comes along the Sforno in one of the great early commentaries. And the Sforno over here says, just like before the floods, right? Just like before the floods, man was not allowed to kill animals to eat. Right? That we know. Right? That we definitely know. That they weren't allowed to kill animals. Right? They weren't allowed to kill animals to eat. So you're going to say, someone will say the vegetarians are right. What does it mean the vegetarians are right? They'll claim before the Mabul, before the floods, man, not allowed to kill animals for food. Forbidden. God saw in the future man's going to want to eat meat. Okay. So what did God do? He permitted it. But he permitted it only in a specific way. Right? Ritual slaughter. Ritual slaughter has to be done in a certain way. It's not done the right way. Right? The laws there are many, many laws. Many, many laws. We mentioned before that not only does a ritual slaughterer have to know the law, it's got to have a lot of fear of heaven. Why? Because, an animal costs a lot. An animal's not cheap. So, it could be, if he stumbled a little bit, maybe he made a nick in the knife, he looks the other way, etc. In order to permit the animal, obviously not good. Right? Certainly not. He's got to have a lot of fear of heaven over here. And not only that, he has to learn under someone obviously knows what they're doing. But you have to learn the laws first. Once you learn the laws first, okay, then you can apprentice. Then you can see, how it's done, how the lungs are checked and this and that. But we mentioned a number of times that, if the animal's straight, you got to check the lungs for perforation, check other parts of the animal, make sure, that it doesn't make it into a treifa, right? There are 18 signs that will make it into a treifa, meaning that's not going to live for a year. And therefore it can't eat it, right? In general. So you need a number of things here. First of all, you need to know what to do. You need to know, the practical law. So you have to learn that very well. And then, you got to learn how to do it. So, there are different things that a person can do, can invalidate it. And it could be something minor. It could be something relatively minor, but it can invalidate the whole thing. Right? So a person needs a lot of fear of heaven. Now, so that's one thing. Second thing is, isn't it true? Before the flood, we're not allowed to eat meat. True. But God changed his mind, didn't God know? God knows the future. Right? God knows the future. How can it be? So man's going to do what they're going to do. God understands the thoughts of man. One of the 13 principles of faith. Right? God knows the thoughts of man. So God knows man's going to desire. Man's going to desire to eat meat. Okay. But what's the higher level? What would seem to be the higher level? The higher level before the flood, 100%, is no meat. You don't eat meat. Not allowed to eat meat. That would seem to be the higher level. But after the floods, we're at a much lower level because of what happens. So therefore, what? Therefore, God allows us to eat meat, right? But it's not anyone who's just allowed to eat meat, right? In other words, someone who's a fool, right? Someone who's doesn't know very much shouldn't eat meat. Meat is something special, right? Not just because it costs a lot or whatever, right? But something gives a person strength, gives a person vitality. Right? It can also make a person very tired if you eat too much of it. It's not healthy if you eat too much of it. Very good. Right? But the Gemara says a number of places, only certain people should be allowed to eat meat. Eating meat's a special thing. Not just everyone. Right? So that's one thing. That's one thing, says this for them over here, that before the flood, you weren't allowed to eat meat. Right? That's one thing. Second thing is, there's a Rashbam over here. Rashbam is grandson of Rashi. And the Rashbam says that just like, how do we translate it over here? Just like it's considered he spilled blood, right? And he spilled blood, he's going to get spiritually cut off, right? So says the Rashbam, this level of death, so to speak, comes from heaven, not in the physical world. Per se, even though we said a person can die young, okay? But you're not going to be killed by a beast. You're not going to be killed by the Sanhedrin. Over here, something happens in heaven, spiritually cut off. Not something that's like physical. Right? So he says that person's going to get spiritually cut off. Once he does this, once he shacks an animal, he ritually slaughters an animal outside where it's supposed to be. Now, bring in another interesting point. Yeah, Rebbe speaks about this a number of times, number of places, but he always speaks about it before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And he says, what does it mean being spiritually cut off? Spiritually cut off means you can die before 60 also. Right? It means the person dies young. I didn't clarify that. Right? Which means the person can die before the age of 60. Why some people, when they hit the age of 60 and they're still here, they make a little chaim. Right? They go a little schnapps, grape juice, wine, whatever. Make a blessing and have in mind they're thankful they reached that age. Right? Not everyone reaches that age. So, but what does it mean to be spiritually cut off in this way? So the Rebbe says there are some people live according to their base design. Right? That's what they do. They live according to their base design. So they live according to their base desires. Are they really alive? So no. They live like animals, they die like animals. Essentially, they're animals. Why? Because there's nothing reigning in their desires. Why do they do what they do? Because they do it. They speak what they want, they eat what they want. Right? So essentially, these people, what does God give them? More of the same. Keep them on the same path. Very hard to repent in such a case. Very, very hard. Right? In other words, the person, let's say they're apathetic to Torah. You have plenty of Jews out there, apathetic to Torah. It's like trying to start a Jeep with a 9-bolt. They're apathetic. They don't care. It's not about truth, not about anything. They want to do what they want to do. Okay. Yeah, but being spiritually cut off means they have no connection. They have no connection to Torah mitzvahs at all. Right? That's why a Jew, it's coming back to Judaism. What's one of the first things we'll tell them is keep kosher. Well, I tell them to keep kosher and keep Shabbos. Right? Keeping kosher to get that garbage out of your system. Because the Gemara says it dulls the spirit. What does it mean it dulls the spirit? It makes someone apathetic. And someone who's apathetic is very hard to hear about Torah mitzvahs. Very, 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 very hard, right, to hear about Torah mitzvahs. So I always had this question. Someone goes to synagogue twice a year, right? Revving up towards Elul, the month of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. So there are Jews that go to synagogue twice a year, right? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, doom and gloom, right? Better times I would think to go to synagogue, but okay. They come Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Yeah. Some Jews, secular Jews, I'll make a generalization because this is what I've seen. So people can take it for what they want. They can look at it the way they want. And that is, they're not there to pray. I don't know what, they're there out of obligation. They feel like they should be there. That's when you see most secular Jews in synagogues on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, when the place is totally packed, during the year, places are empty. So what are they doing there? What in the world are they doing there? Right? So you'll tell me you don't know what's in their hearts. Only God knows what's in their heart. Bro, I can tell you what I see, or what I've seen over the years. And that is, they feel an obligation to go. Okay. Are they there to change? Are they there to be better Jews? Are they there to be closer to God? So again, I'll get plastered over here and people say, you don't know what's in their heart. Maybe they are in their own way. Maybe. But why would I say that's not the case? So I'll give a few examples. One example is after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, or even during Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. What are they doing? Are they keeping kosher? Are they keeping Shabbos? Are they working on speaking Lashon Hara? I would say probably not. Why? Because they don't. It's not on their agenda. They go, they do what they do, and that's it. Not about spiritual growth. It's about staying mediocre at best, not even. Right? So that's one thing. The second thing is, like someone once said to me, and I mentioned this story before, it's a sad story, right? But we'll mention it anyway. And that is, someone goes to synagogue, and there are places where you have to buy tickets. You have to have a ticket to go in. You paid for your seat. You got to have a ticket to get in. Very good. Someone told me, the more money you pay, the closer you get to the air conditioner. Right? So I said, great. Why don't you buy portable and bow down to it? Like, you're very cynical. I said, yeah, I am very cynical, but you just said the more money you pay, the closer you get to the AC. So therefore, a person's there for what? The air conditioning. That's what it sounds like. That's what they're saying. I'll take it at face value. I'm not trying to read into it. Right? I don't need to read into it. That's what they're saying. Essentially what they're saying. So I was wondering, somebody like that, even if you want to tell me deep down, maybe they're there for other reasons, spiritual reasons. Okay. But the reality is, what does God give somebody like that? Right? What does he give them? I have this question. Right? I have this question. They're there, I have no idea what. I don't think they're there to pray. I don't think they're there to change. Is it better they're there than they're not there? That's debatable. But what does God give them? Someone's there, they're twiddling their thumbs for 2 hours or less. They're not there for spiritual terms in general. You tell me, but they came, you're right. They came to hear opera. They came to be entertained. Okay. Because a Jew goes to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. There are plenty of Jews that don't. Never step foot in the synagogue. Right? Many more unaffiliated Jews than everybody else. And even if they're affiliated, it doesn't really matter because they're all going to die out anyway. Right? But the point is, I had this question. I had this question for many years. Then I heard a great rabbi answer the question. This great rabbi said, what does God give them? When they come, forget what's in their heart, whatever, that God's going to judge that however he sees it. Not necessary for me to judge, even though I am. Just telling you what I see or what I've seen. Then what's the question? So then the question is, okay, what does God give them? This great rabbi says, you know what he gives them? More. More of their desires. More of what they're already doing. That's what he gives them. He gives them more. And he keeps them on the same path. Because the Gemara says, you want to go on the right path, God will help you. You want to go on the wrong path, God won't stop you. Now, someone may say that person might get inspired. Maybe. Maybe someone will get inspired. Maybe. I don't think the vast majority of people are going to get inspired to change. They don't believe in it anyway. But anyway, that's not even the point. Point is, I have another question. Right? The question is, this great rabbi said what? He said that what's going to happen is God's going to give them more of where they're holding now. Going to give them more of it, more desire, more money, more this, whatever it is. So now Kaufman's got a question. If that's really true, then how are they ever going to repent? How is it going to be possible for them to repent? I would say impossible. If God's giving you your desires more and more and more and more, He's just giving you a lot more of it, keeping you in the same path. How's the person ever going to change? That to me seems impossible. Would seem impossible. Now, someone's going to say, someone potentially is going to say, guess what? They could change. Yeshua is Hashem Kerafai. Salvation of God come with the blink of an eyelash. So what can happen? Overnight, a person can change. It can happen. It can definitely happen. Is it probable? I wouldn't say that. Certain things, God can turn the screws, make a person really at his mercy, make life real, real hard. Sure. And even if God pulls through for them, do they change? How many people have had an out-of-body experience, they actually come back to Torah mitzvah? Some do. Some it takes a long time. There's a story called someone wrote a book called A View from Above. One of the secular Israeli woman, I think it was a woman, that got clocked on the head by a steel beam from like 5 stories up. I was on a construction site, wherever they were. They got clocked on the head. Now, obviously, you get clocked on the head by a steel beam 5 stories up, you're probably going to die, right? It's a good chance you're going to die. Yeah, what happens? Person had out-of-body experience. And for whatever reason, they had a merit to come back to their body. They had a merit to come back to their body. Well, they made a promise. Things are going to be different when they come back to their body. Okay. So they had a merit for whatever reason to come back to the body, because if they didn't come back to the body, they're dead. Right? They're essentially dead. But if you read the book and you go through what happens, it took her 7 years. 7 years to come to Torah mitzvah. Right? So I would say, why 7 years? I understand you got to go through rehabilitation, and all that. Fine. It's going to take a person a while to get back to themselves. Okay. 7 years? You were in the Olam Ha'emes. You were in the true world. You understand what reality is. What happened? Take you 7 years to change? Right? So I made a video years ago, Parshas Balak, right? Talking about Bilam, the evil non-Jewish prophet. God tells him, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to curse the Jewish people, this, that. You have prophecy. Non-Jews have to claim, what? If you would have given us a prophet like Moshe Rabbeinu, we'd be different. You gave us Bilam. He didn't change anybody. He's totally evil, this, that, and the other thing. True. If you would have given us a proper prophet, okay. But what's the point? The point is, he has prophecy. God comes to him. He understands his prophecy, right? That's what prophecy is. A person understands, they're in a trance, they're asleep, they see a vision, whatever it is. But they understand it's prophecy. So we don't have prophecy today. Prophecy today is given over to little kids or imbeciles, meaning we don't have prophecy today, right? As the Talmud says. But there are some great people that have what we call Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration. Yeah, the low form of prophecy. But prophecy again is something where the person understands they're speaking to God or God is speaking to them. Let's say through an intermediary, through a vision, whatever it is. Very good. How can it be? How can it be, even if he's evil? God comes to him through a vision and shows him and tells him and this and that. How can he not be swayed by it? How can he not do God's will? How can he still want to curse the Jewish people? So what was my conclusion? Very simple conclusion. And that is, even if a person has prophecy, it ain't going to make him righteous. Someone came to the Brisker Rav, a blessed memory, son of Chaim Soloveitchik, one of the Torah giants of the last generation, going to everybody. And someone from America comes and tells him, says, if God were to reveal himself more, there'd be open miracles, people were to repent and come back. So the Brisker Rav said, not true. God does an open miracle. An open miracle, you're not going to change. You're not going to come to Torah mitzvahs. Why not? How is that possible? It says the Brisker Rav, you got to be a vessel. You got to be a vessel over here. If you're not a vessel, to want to reach Torah mitzvahs at some level, you ain't going to get it. Even if God reveals himself right to your face. Because you're not a vessel to change. You don't want to change. Right? But the person said, God can do open miracles. You're right. God can do open miracles. And if he did, what's it going to do? Someone all of a sudden out of nowhere is going to change? No. Why not? You got to be somebody to change. You got to be a vessel to change. Give another example. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says. Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us a story. God wants evil king Achav to repent. Wants him to repent. So God comes to him. God comes to him and says, imagine, you understand God speaking to you. You didn't eat anchovies or something, or something spicy. God, you understand God speaking to you. And God says, I want to walk with you in Gan Eden. I want to walk with you in Ben Yishai, the son of Jesse. Who's the son of Jesse? King David. He says, I want to walk with you and King David in paradise. Imagine. Imagine God would come to us and say, I'm going to take a stroll with your soul, with you and David HaMelech, with you and Avraham Avinu, with you and Moshe Rabbeinu. You're going to say, great, let's go. I'm ready. My soul's ready. Let's say. That's not what Achav said, the Gemara says. What does Achav say? Who goes first? Are you kidding? What do you mean who goes first? Guy's an egomaniac. Who goes first? God says King David goes first. Ben Yishai goes first. Says Achav, as the Gemara tells us. What does Achav say? Nope, not interested. Inconceivable. Inconceivable. Makes no sense logically. None. God comes and says, I'm going to stroll with you and King David or Moshe Rabbeinu. And you're asking, can I go first? Are you serious? Maniac. Why didn't God give him the opportunity? Doesn't God know what he's going to do? Yeah. He's trying to get him to repent. But see, when someone is, that strong in what they're doing against God, they can't hear reason. They can't even hear direct revelation to want to change. Humility. God's trying to show him humility. Very hard to understand. Very, very hard to understand. You got to be a vessel. You got to be a vessel to want to return, to want to repent, to want to go in the right path. And if God reveals himself and you're not a vessel, it ain't going to happen. It's a mind-boggling idea. Right? And if a person doesn't internalize the message, see what happened to Korah. Saw the miracles in Egypt, saw the miracles in the desert. And he's jealous. Jealousy kills him. That's what it says in Pirkei Avos. Right? Desire, jealousy, honor can destroy a person, literally. Get there when I'm like 95. That's what the Mishnah says. That can destroy a person. Hell, the ark didn't die on a very high level. I want to be the high priest. He's not going to come against Moshe Rabbeinu if they want to be the king. They would have killed him. So he comes out against Aaron Cohen, protects you. Got connection. Your brother is the king. Well, of course, he's going to give you a high position, the second highest position. Korach sees who comes out of him. He saw through prophecy who's going to come out of him, Samuel the prophet. He goes, I also have yichud. I also have a pedigree. What, you going to tell me? He's better? Look, I got Samuel the prophet coming out of me. He's going to anoint David Melech, future Messiah. Right? It's going to come from him. What do you think? I'm a slouch? Then he starts making fun of Moshe Rabbeinu. Also very hard to understand at face value. Right? Can't look at these things like we're reading a newspaper. You know, but what's the bottom line? Ego plays a major role over here. Person wants honor. Person has desires. Person has jealousy. You're going to say to the extent that he's going to destroy himself and 250 great people who's able to convince to go against Moshe Rabbeinu? Yeah. He wasn't a fool by any stretch. Not at all. Very hard to understand. Simple explanation is these things can kill you, literally. But you have to be a vessel. You have to want to repent. You have to want to change. And for some people, it's going to be very hard, right? It's totally going to be hard over you. Why? Because that's who they are. For them to change, seemingly impossible. Mind-boggling. We're not talking this cream puff generation. Right? You're talking about someone who saw God face to face at Mount Sinai in Korah. Even with Achab and how evil he was, he also wasn't a slouch in Torah. Right? But how could he make such a mistake? How could ego get in the way? God speaking to him. He understands God speaking to him. So the Gemara says, based on that, ego can kill you, even if God comes to you himself. You're going to say, wow, if it happened to him, if it happened to great people like that, there's no hope for us. Yeah, we could live our lives that way. Woe to us. Well, I'll just do what I want anyway because it's never going to happen. I'm never going to change it. Okay. Everyone at their own level. You got to have discipline. You can't just do what you want. It's all about what I do to draw close to God or not. I'm either going in the right direction or I'm going in the wrong direction. Right? That's what it is. So someone who's going in the wrong direction, now they show up in synagogue, you should say, give them the benefit of the doubt. They're actually to pray. All right, let's say they don't know how to pray, they don't know what they're doing there, whatever. When a person does things by habit, beginning of Shari Tshuva, Rabbeinu Yonah says, a person like that, once you start doing things wrong, you start doing it more and more, you start doing it by rote, then it becomes part of you. Once it becomes part of you, it's almost impossible to change. Almost. I say almost because the person can still change. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy by any stretch. Not at all. You're going to say it's part of my psyche now. Okay. You're right, part of your psyche. So, who said you should act on it? Who said this is what you should do? But the more you do it, the harder it is to change. Okay. So we got to combat it in some way. We have to see, someone asked once before, right? You do the same thing over and over again. How do you stop it? You got to see why you're doing it. You got to get to the source. And then you got to figure out how to combat it. Most people don't even remember what the source is. Some people do. They'll say, this is the way I deal with this. This is the way I deal with that. This is the way someone says, this is what I say back. Based on, I don't know, because something could have happened 10 years ago more. And that's their reaction. They never worked it out. There are plenty of things, even when we're younger, we never worked out. So it comes up in different ways when we're older. It could be very negative ways. People go through difficult times, they abuse it. They numb themselves. Some people become drug addicts. That's what they do. They want to numb themselves. They want to feel good. Yeah, it makes sense. I've had a crummy life. This happened, that happened, the other thing happened. It's all true. Right? Let's say. And let's say it had nothing to do with them. Let's say it's all onus. Something they never asked for. Okay? Person can feel sorry for themselves the rest of their life. Yeah. It could have a real serious negative effect. Okay. So we probably all have that. We've probably all gone through things. Either we wish we could change. We wish they never happened. But they happened. And they affected us in a deep way. And we still look at it like we're 10 years old. And we're still going through the same pain. Okay, then a person needs serious therapy for that. On my own and scream, it's not going to help. But I would say, perspective is everything. Certain things done against our will, we don't have a choice. We didn't ask for it. We didn't set ourselves up for that. You can say it's not my fault, right? Oh, but you got accused of this. You got accused of the other thing. And then it came down like a ton of pricks and it just spiraled out of control. Yep. 100%. That what God wants? No. Not at all. I look back, I use myself as an example. When people think, oh, you're going to talk about these great rabbis and this. I use myself as an example. Were there a lot of not nice things when I was younger? Yeah, things I saw, things I witnessed, things I heard, things that happened. So, what I'm telling over now, I wish I could have told to my 15-year-old self, my 10-year-old self. It's good therapy for myself. Because the reality is, and all this inner emotion, and now I understand, years later, what the reality of the world is. And what's going on and what trials and tribulations are. And God knocking on your door, but you don't see. You get made fun of for being Jewish, not even religious, per se. You do some religious things. Go to synagogue once a week, twice a week, makes you religious. That's more than most people, okay. Yeah, but you're, God to remind you, you're a Jew. Get the non-Jews to remind you, right? The old saying goes, if a Jew doesn't make Kiddush on Shabbos, the non-Jews make Havdalah. What does Havdalah mean? Literally, to distinguish. They'll make you feel like you don't belong. And that's a good thing, because we don't belong. We have to stay within our own to keep what God wants us to keep. Story of Talbot, blessed memory. Torah giants of the last generation was a child of the Holocaust. Told this story to Americans, Canadians in Tel Aviv University many years ago. I took him to speak. He spoke about the Holocaust. He was a child of the Holocaust. He told the following story. There was right at the end of the war. Told the story before, but it's a good story. Right at the end of the war, There's an old man that comes into the ghetto before they got liberated, pulling out his hair, he's ripping his skin, he's going out of his mind, screaming the top of his lungs like a lunatic, saying, it's all my fault, it's all my fault, they turned me in, this, that. They calmed him down, they said, what happened? What happened to you? Now again, let's understand the context. Germans know the war's over, Russians are coming, trying to kill as many people as they can, right? As many Jews as they can before they flee. Right at the end of the war. They calm him down, see what happened. He said, I lived outside the ghetto. I'm a secular Jew, lived outside the ghetto. And my family, we have a discussion one night. They say, hey, Dad, Grandpa, you're Jewish. I said, so, doesn't mean anything. I eat what you do, I do what you do, this, that. So what? Doesn't mean anything. Right? They had a meeting. They said, but you're Jewish. So all this time, what, they didn't realize he was a Jew? Of course they knew he was a Jew. What do they do? Imagine. You have a wife, 30, 40 years, whatever it is. You have kids, you have grandkids. Yeah, even though all these Jews are getting slaughtered, he's living, not a problem outside the ghetto, not an issue. What do? They turn him in. The Talmud's telling the story. They turned him in. Now think about it. This is the very end of the war. If you tell me it's during the war, he gets rounded up like everybody else and it happened, and his family turned him in. Okay, it's still significant. It's still definitely significant. But this is even more significant. Why? Because it's the very end of the war. What do you think? The Germans now need another person to make a bar of soap? What do they need him for? Again, if he got rounded up like everyone else, it's still a story. It's still an unbelievable story. He got turned in by his own family. It's an unbelievable story. But so Rabbi Tauber said, it's even a more unbelievable story because it happened right at the end of the war. Right at the very end of the war. So Rabbi Tauber said, what's the point? What was God's point over here? Another bar of soap? The end of the war. A few weeks, a month. The Russians are coming, that's it. Germans are finished. What's the point over here? He told these college students, he said, don't be blind. You can run from God, you can't hide. God is going to remind you you're a Jew whenever it's going to be. Right? Today, anti-Semitism all-time high. Right? No question. There are people that are anti-Semites that don't even know what Jews are. Never met a Jew in their life. But they're taught they hate Jews. Right? That's not the point here, speaking about anti-Semitism. The point is, you can't run. Because in either case, you could run, God's going to find you. Not like, the bully man's going to get you. He's going to remind you. This guy lived a secular, depraved life. His whole life. Yeah. The worst thing a person can do is intermarry. The worst thing. I just heard an interesting question. What's worse? What's worse? Intermarrying? Marrying a non-Jew? Or being a homosexual? Right? You have these, interesting philosophical questions. Right? What's worse? Right? What's worse? Over here. Very interesting question. I heard Rabbi say both punishable, right? Sorry, homosexuality punishable by death. With the marriage, yeah. No, that's a death penalty, but it's pretty bad. Pretty bad. So, homosexuality is one thing. You still remain a Jew. You don't lose your Jewishness per se. Right? There is repentance. Someone who intermarries, they overstep the boundaries. That anyone who's affiliated with the synagogue, you ask them, A or B, multiple choice, A or B. According to the Bible, are you allowed to marry a Jew? Yes or no? No, but no. It's A or B. Yes or no? B. No. That's it. Right? Someone who's unaffiliated, they'll say, who cares? It doesn't matter. They're not bad people. We're not saying non-Jews are bad. We're just saying, Jews can't marry them. And is it the non-Jew's fault? No. It's the Jew's fault. There's no question about it. Non-Jew did anything wrong. Right? Not necessarily even a stumbling block over here, per se, but we're not going to get into that. Right? This is a huge problem. 70% of the Jewish people, 7 out of 10 people being wiped off the face of the map. Right? Losing hundreds of thousands of Jews every year to assimilation and into marriage. Homosexuality is bad. Same death penalty as desecration of Shabbos in public. Okay. This seemingly is worse. This you're cutting yourself off. You're saying the Jewish people don't matter. Right? And I'll give you a parable. Parable, what it's compared to. Someone gets called up to the Torah. What's the blessing they make? First blessing they make is Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim. God, you chose me among the nations, and you gave us your Torah. Blessed are you, God, a God, source of all blessing, who gave us the Torah. Someone who's intermarried, I can call them up. The blessing in vain. Right? Some people do it for other reasons, call them up, whatever. Right? But in general, it's a problem. Why is it a problem? They can't make the blessing. They're saying you chose us among the nations for what? Why did God take us out of Egypt? Right? At the end of Book of Leviticus says God took us out of Egypt. We'll get there one day. Maybe when I'm about 78. Right? What's the Torah say? To distinguish you between the nations, not to eat shrimp, not to do these other things. He distinguishes among the nations. He wanted to make us a holy nation. That's what he wanted. Right? But you go this path, it's over. Right? The mother's not Jewish, kids won't get any Jewish education. 80% of people intermarry don't get a Jewish education whether they're Jewish or not. Very low percentage. You're gonna get wiped out. So it's an amazing thing over here. You think about it. What's inside a person? This person has no connection to Judaism at all. None. As Rabbi Talbert tells the story. And he gets taken and sent in by his own people, his own family. That person dies, he dies sanctifying God's name. But God's making a point. And the point is, you can't hide. Right? You can't hide over here. Right? So being spiritually cut off over, that's how we get onto all this. It could be a person is so apathetic, they can't hear about Torah mitzvah. They're not interested in Torah mitzvah. They have no connection, at all. And they're doing the same things they did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, some more, some less. Fortunately or unfortunately, I see what a lot of people do on Facebook, right? It tells a lot about the person, what they post, what's important to them. So again, you could say, oh, he's going off on one of his rants. He thinks he knows what's in the hearts of everybody. No, it's not a question of me judging him. People put things on Facebook either because they think it's funny, whatever. They put things up, or they put up other things that mean something to them. Yeah, people put up animals, and if their animal died or whatever, they're broken about it. I get it. Animals are like, a person's family. I understand. It's a bit much. Definitely a bit much. I grew up, having a dog. It's sad. Get old, this, that. You're right. But they're an animal. Man's best friend. Very good. They're an animal. And either they're reincarnated, someone's reincarnated into an animal. When the animal dies, soul goes up. What happens to the animal? Nothing. right? Fido, Fifi, whatever the name of the animal is, Chuck. And no offense, anyone's name was Chuck. Yeah. Go up, they go up to heaven, nothing. They die like a dog, no pun intended. Then we have an animalistic soul. That's it. You know, and I'm going to say it's very sad. Very, very sad. Even, God forbid an animal, for that animal a number of years, then the animal gets mauled. Get mauled by a wolf, coyote, something. I understand. It's sad. It's like part of the family. Very close. God made them so happy, this, that. I get it. I know some of this happened to it. It's tragic. Well, I'm going to make fun of it a little bit. It is tragic. It's true. Because they feel something like part of the family. Okay. But this went overboard. They're like sitting Shiva. They're like in mourning, people sending like all these condolences. Like, it's like they lost a child. Now, I never say this to the person because they flatten me like a pancake. They say, you don't think, and this pet was so this and that, and you don't understand, we're so close, and such a beautiful animal, and what a tragedy. Yeah, okay. It is a tragedy, true. People look at them like they're part of the family. People get choked up. I get it. I understand. Deep down, I'm an animal lover. It's true, but they're animals. They're God's creation. Sometimes bad things happen. Get hit by cars, get mauled. Some of them get sick. They get cancer and they get other things, and they have to put them down. It's sad. It is sad. It's true. But what am I in the world living for? What am I doing? And when I see people put things like this up, okay, I get it, it's sad. It is sad. But I think, for goodness sake, it was a dog. It was a dog, cat, whatever. They die. They get sick. They get hit by cars. And a lot of things can happen. Like, you don't get it. You're one of these fanatics that say animals don't have feelings. I didn't say that. Animals are programmed. They can have feelings. Right? You got to treat them with respect. You can't abuse them. You got to feed them before you feed yourself. I mean, there are halachas governing this. That's all true. But I think people forget. They're an animal. A dog is a dog. A cat is a cat. That's their nature. They're not a child. You don't sit Shiva for a dog or a cat. You can bury them. You don't say Kaddish for them. They don't have a soul like we do. You don't say Kaddish for them. Now, some people say, why not? Right? What's the problem? They're like family. They're like a child. Again, what is an animal? An animal has programmed DNA. They have one aspect of the soul. There are 5 aspects of the soul. They have one of them. What is that? The nefesh behemoth. What we call the animalistic soul. Everybody has it, Jew and non-Jew. We do things like animals. Okay? But that's all they have. And they're programmed. I remember one of the nicer memories, I have when I was in South America. I went to a zoo. And I thought it was ironic. Get to the zoo. What's the first thing you see? Pet cemetery. So I'm thinking Stephen King. Or Cujo, right? Whatever. So I said it must cost a lot to bury your animal here. Here lies Fido, here lies Chuck, here lies whatever. Maybe once a year they come to say cottage. I don't know. Say the morning's prayer. I can imagine how much it costs. To be buried in a special place. Respect. They're animal. Okay. You're gonna spend a couple $1,000 more, probably more. I always say, I can talk to anybody. I should have been a dog psychologist. That's where the money is. I said, when I was in America, so after Shabbos, we were walking back, and I saw this. It was actually the thing for dog grooming, right? For a kennel, I think for dog grooming, whatever. I said, I said, the bill doctor. Anyway, I said, I'm in the wrong profession. I should have been really a dog psychologist. I just learned how to be a dog psychologist. That's where the money is. That's insanity. It's a dog. Right? Again, I'm not making fun of dog lovers here. You can love animals. I'm not saying not, but you have to keep it in perspective. They're not a child. They're just not that. But that's how people look at them. That's how people look at pets. Okay, there's a problem. They want companionship. I get it. It makes sense, especially if a person's lonely. I get it. I'm talking about someone has like a retreat and they take these, abandoned dogs or, other animals, and they rehabilitate them, and it's okay. That's a different issue. I think people go overboard. But I saw this, this I don't know, it's like 3 years ago, more. That this dog was mauled. Yeah, it's sad. Okay, people made it out like everyone is sending condolences. Like, it's on your birthday, you get like 100 notices. People wishing you a happy birthday, right? Or an anniversary or something or whatever. So people put up these things. Everyone and their mother's commenting. It was like a shiva. It was like mourning. I feel your pain. I'm here for you. Is anything we can do for you? Grievance for an animal, right? I'm sure, there are people out there that deal with that. Help people deal with trauma of an animal. Probably, can't make this up. It's probably a real thing, right? Now, even when it comes to something like that, the Havdil make a big distinction there. Someone who dies, family member, they're obligated to mourn for. Yeah. So you speak about the person, their qualities. That's what you should be speaking about at the Shiva house. The mourner's house. But don't, secular world, you don't speak about that. Speak about other things. You don't want to speak about that normally. Because then it makes it very real. Yeah. But so what's the essence of the soul? Right? Getting very deep here. See, I guess the sun really kicked my brain over the last week. I got all the peelings. I got burned to show it. But what's the essence of the soul? Right? You got to go back to Genesis. The beginning of the book of Genesis says, God breathed in the spirit of life. Aramaic translations, we always say it. God gave the Ruach Malalo. What does Malalo mean? He gave us a spirit that speaks. Well, animals speak. I mean, if I play Dr. Doodle, I could speak with the animals, but I don't. We don't understand what they say. They have their own language. But what does it mean to speak? It means to reason. It means to make decisions. It means, as the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, God put our soul in us. So he gave someone in creation the ability to make decisions, to do the right thing, and God forbid, do the wrong thing. That's the only thing in creation that has the ability to do so. Nobody else has the ability to do that except man. You're going to say, but an animal could choose to eat or not to eat. That's very true. They're hungry. They're not hungry. This, that. Okay. Does that mean they make decisions like us? No. They don't have that capability. Why? Why? Because again, they're limited. One aspect of the soul. That's all they are. So God breathed in the spirit of life to man, the Jews and the non-Jews. What's the purpose of that? So the Ramchal says the purpose is what? To draw close. How am I going to do that? How is that possible to draw close to God in this world? It's only one way. Torah mitzvahs. But the Ramchal says I got a problem. Adam and Eve ate from the tree. Adam and Eve eat from the tree of knowledge. That means we have an evil inclination inside. If we have an evil inclination inside, we're in trouble. Because now we're fighting the outside world. We're fighting this world. This world wants us to do fun things, wants us to kick back and enjoy it. The soul, what does it want us to do? Soul wants to get closer to God. How's the soul going to get closer to God? Says the Ramchal, Torah mitzvahs. If we keep Torah mitzvahs, we do the right thing, exponentially what? We're going to elevate the body and the soul. Very good. If we do the wrong thing, we go according to the body, we go according to desire, what's going to happen? We debase the body, we debase the soul. It's an ongoing struggle to the day you die. That's the ongoing struggle. So if God put the soul of us into everybody, right? He put a soul in every person's got their own message out there, got their own purpose. I can't fulfill someone else's purpose. They can't fulfill whatever my purpose is, right? But at the same time, we're supposed to attach ourselves to God. Animals don't need any other part of the soul. They're programmed. They're robots, essentially. That's what they are. Doesn't mean they don't have feelings. The people say they do, and then okay. They don't have the same soul as we do. They're not like us. They're not. I remember few things I remember from 9th grade, my social studies class. Teacher said, anyone who has pets, I don't know exactly what the purpose of this experiment was. I mean, we'll see what it was in a second, but I don't remember the context why we did it or why it should have been done. That is go home. If you have a pet, just like curse it out. Say whatever you want to it, see what the pet does. See what your dog does, your cat does, whatever other, animals, you get gerbils, hamsters, whatever. Just go and like lash out at them. Say, you stupid, mutt, this, that. See what they do. See what they do. In most cases, what's the case? Nothing. You yell and scream at them, nothing. They're over, they want their belly scratched, they want this, they want that. Nothing, no effect. No effect. Now, it's been proven, plants grow better, you play softer music, they grow better, you play, hard rock, they might die and wilt. Okay, that is something. There is something now, there's the reaction. There's a reaction to such things. Okay. But animals and animals. Essentially, an animal's an animal. People have pets because they like pets. People have pets because they're lonely. Okay. They're not a child. You don't say Kaddish for them. Not even a question. And even a person reincarnated into a soul, the dog, animal, whatever, it dies. That's it. Not going to have a portion of the world to come. Just not going to happen. But we live in a messed up world. People have fewer kids or don't have kids at all, so they have animals. They're animals, they're like their kids. But they're missing the whole perspective. And the whole perspective is God breathed in the spirit of life. He gave everybody a soul. That comes from him himself, whatever that means. He gives us the ability to draw close. This is fantasy. The highest level. I'm not telling you, tell people this, especially that animal that died or got mauled or who knows what. They'll think you're a crackpot. I like animals, so what? What do you care if you like animals or not? What does Kaufman always say? Look at the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? The bigger picture is a cat is a cat. No matter how you train it, did experimentation, with a cat and trained it this and that, do all kinds of things. And at the end of the day, in the middle of doing one of these things, someone took out of their pocket a mouse. What does the cat do when they see a mouse? They run after it. No matter how sophisticated they want to make this cat, a cat is a cat. A cat chases mice. Finds them, eats them, whatever they do with them. Plays with them, eats them, whatever. You can't change their nature. A mouse does not become a human. They don't become a human. Again, does that mean I can do whatever I want to them? No. Doesn't mean that I have to, that's respect for them. You can't eat before that. You can't eat before that. There are laws governing this. Can't just do whatever I want with them. I certainly can't abuse them. Can I use them for experimentation on certain things to cure diseases? Yes, that's permissible. But some people say, the Peter Pet activists, whatever you call them, right? They're going to jump down my throat and say, that's illegal. They have rights. They have rights. You're trying to cure humans. You're trying to find, cure for different diseases. I can't use them. Why not? Why is that forbidden? It's not abuse. That's a purpose. You might say, well, why should I kill them for their fur? Now I got nice leather shoes, alligator bones. Isn't that painful? Yeah, it might be. So what? You don't have to have alligator boots? Well, according to them, no. It has to be synthetic. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm allowed to use animals as long as I don't abuse them. Right? It comes on Noda B'Yehuda, famous response of Noda B'Yehuda, more than 200 years ago. Or that are you allowed to hunt for pleasure? Are you allowed to hunt for pleasure? So the Noda B'Yehuda says, no. Says you're not allowed to hunt for pleasure. Why not? Why not? Because he says that's considered being cruel. It's an act of cruelty. Why? There's no purpose in it. You're scaring the wits out of the animal. You're doing it for fun. Listen, if you're hunting an animal because you're starving, this is the only way you can get food. That's a different issue. He's telling you this is what the non-Jews do. That's an act of cruelty. I would say it's even an act of cruelty for non-Jews. Even though that's what they do, it's cruel. Chasing animals, trying to kill them. For fun. Not because you want to eat them. Because you're starving. If that would be the case, be all right. You do whatever you can to survive. But if you're just chasing them for the sake of chasing them, it's a different issue. Right? It's a totally different issue. Right? Totally different issue over here. But can I use them for shoes? For their hides? I gotta tell them it's painful taking off the skin and this and that. Okay. That might be true. It's not called cruelty. That's part of the purpose. Right? Try and make them suffer less. I don't even know if you have to go that far. You do whatever it takes. Right? You try and make it the most painless way, but you're allowed to. You're allowed to get benefit from them. That's not a problem. All right. Now, some people would say that's abuse. Using their skin for, using their skin to make pocketbooks and other things, that's abuse. We don't hold that way. Doing it in a nasty way, okay. But if you're doing it in a normal way, that's not abuse. Right? Not only that, if it helps cure disease, why not? We don't hold that. It's abuse over here. That's normal usage. Of an animal, right? If it came to, abusing an animal, okay, it's different. Right? The difference of opinion, the Talmud says, causing pain to an animal, whether it's a Torah prohibition or rabbinic prohibition. Right? There are many states of Torah prohibition. You can't abuse animals. Okay? Right? But we said over here, I'm allowed to eat them. So ritual slaughter is not abuse. It's kind of funny in certain ways. We have, certain countries that ban ritual slaughter because they say it's cruel. I saw in one place, non-Jews slaughter animals. Now, I'm not going to say do it everywhere like that. I'm just saying what I saw. They're hacking this animal to death. Hacking it to death. Till it died. Saw how ritual slaughter does it. 1, 2, 3 animals dead. Right? Take this very, very sharp knife. It's a windpipe. It's a trachea. That's it. Animal dies straight away. Straight away. It might move around a little bit. Won't get gross here. Might flap a little bit. It dies straight away. Instantaneous. No pain. Instantaneous. Dies straight away. How they call that cruel? Because they're anti-Semites. They're anti-Semites. Yeah, that's the only thing that makes any sense. Oh, I'm gonna say it's so cruel and this, that really. And in Switzerland, they wanted to ban ritual slaughter. I think it's still banned there. They wanted to ban ritual slaughter. The way they said you could do it is to stun the animal first. In other words, you give it a little bit of juice, you stun it, then you can slaughter it. So the 3-day age, Rabbi Shua Weinberg, of blessed memory, one of the Torah giants of the last generation, and his question and answers, I think. He's got pages and pages on this topic. Pages and pages on this topic. Whether it's permitted or not. Because he found that, yeah, there's a certain amount of juice you give an animal. They know how much juice to give where it's not going to die. Yeah, okay, so they stun it. Very good. Problem is, even when they stun it, he found that they could fry certain organs. In other words, let's say, they give it a certain amount of juice, whatever it is, and after they kill the animal, they find that the animal let's say the kidneys, are burnt, totally burnt, or the liver, or any other part of the animal, or the brain even. Let's say it fries the brain. Essentially, part of what it does, maybe scrambles it anyway. But if you have a hole in the brain, let's say, makes it into a treif. Right? There are 18 signs that it's not going to live for 18. It's not going to live for 12 months. Yeah. So we said, even if you give it minimal months, you don't know the effect it can have on organs. I mean, that's his conclusion after like 100 pages on cut to the chase, right? But that's what he says. So he says you can't do it. You can't do it because essentially you could make it into something not kosher, even if you ritually slaughter it. But let's analyze the question. Forget all that. Let's analyze the question. That is humane, right? How in the world does that become humane, right? How does it become humane where you give this animal juice, you shake the animal? Like, again, they know how much to give it so it doesn't die. I get it. They know how much to give it. Okay. So it doesn't die. They shake it. It's weaker. Now it's easier to kill it. Okay. Why is that humane, according to them? I mean, let's imagine you put this thing on the animal, you're holding it down, and you juice it. Yeah, you give it enough so it's it's calm now. So now you can come in and just ritually slaughter it. Right. So it wasn't an issue whether it's cruel or not. That wasn't the issue for the 3-day age for Rabbi Weinberg. The question is, you give it a certain amount of juice, it can destroy certain organs, or the brain, or other parts of the body. That's the problem, right? That's essentially the problem, right? So he said he had a major doubt over here. Because even if you give it a little bit of juice, you can make it into a treif before you kill it, and that's forbidden. Can't get any benefit from it. But I'm asking a more basic question. The question is, if you're going to tell me, that what we do is cruel, and if the animal dies in a split second and that's cruel, take a look at what they do. I'm sure they have it online. Yeah, take a look at what they do when they stun it. That cannot be pretty. Yeah, you take the 600-pound animal, it's like this, it's like shaking. Brain fried or who knows what. That's not cruel. Right? If they're going to say what we do is cruel, come on. Right? It's a crock. It's a total crock. Total crock. Yeah, somebody asked, can the Jewish soul be reincarnated into an animal? Yes. Definitely true. Definitely true. And this be why someone may so be attached to their pet. I'm talking about a human being. Their soul is in them. Yeah. We're not talking about if the soul is in an animal, they understand they're in the animal. Right? As far as I understand, the soul understands that, yeah, they're stuck in this animal, right? But if a person, a person is not going to be reincarnated and have a dog soul. That's not going to happen. They're going to have a human. They're going to have whatever 5 aspects or less aspects if you're a non-Jew of the soul, right? They're not reincarnated. If they're reincarnated into a dog, they're a dog, right? That's the case. Even if they're reincarnated into a human, they don't have a dog soul. They don't have a dog soul over here, right? In other words, if they're reincarnated into an animal, the soul's in the animal. If they're reincarnated back into a human, well, they're a human. They're a human. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think they just have this. They have a special attachment. They have special attachment to animals, right? To whatever animal they have. Some more, some less, right? But if you've had an animal, I think it's pretty simple. If you've had an animal 10, 12 years or more, get attached. It's like part of the family. They, participate in all the family things. Birthday party for a different thing, whatever. That's why they're attached. They've had it for so long. Steady companion, does what you want. Right? A lot of times cats a little more finicky, let's say. But whatever. Man's best friends. So it makes sense. It makes sense they'd be more attached to it. The longer you have, the more attached. I would say there are certain animals that are easier to be attached to than others. How are people, what's the word? How are people, how are they affected by, let's say they have rabbits and they find out a rabbit, got loose or whatever, and then, doesn't come back. Or a parakeet or, other animals. So I would say certain animals, I think there's more of a fondness than others. Can a person be attached to a rabbit? Yeah. Can a person be attached to gerbils? I guess so. Or fish or parakeet. But I would think, other animals, I think that last longer, that are around longer, that have more attachments, more of affinities. Right? I think it's easy to get attached to a dog for what dogs do, what cats do, than other animals. A person get attached to a horse if you have a horse, or goats, or other animals, you can get attached to them. I'm not even talking about someone on a farm or any of these other things, or you have them around. I'm talking about whole animals, right? Dogs and cats in general. People attach to them. Makes sense, right? But the longer you have them, the more attached they get. It has nothing to do with reincarnation. It's just they're more attached. It makes sense, in that way. Could a person? I guess the question would be, if a person's reincarnated, we're probably everybody today has a reincarnated soul. Could that reincarnated soul be part of a dog? No. They're not going to have a dog soul in there. Not that I understand. Right? In other words, if a person's going to be reincarnated into a dog, they're a dog. Or a cat, or a rock, or, a wall or something. That's where they are at that point until God takes them out. For whatever their punishment is. Right? But they're not going to have a reincarnated soul as a dog that's inside of them that makes them more attached to dogs. Right? It's something, it's something that they're accustomed to. They've had them for so long, a different thing. Right? There was a story I heard, I think I mentioned last week or week before, that I heard about happened in California. So I don't know if it's such a proof over here, but a kid goes to school. And he thinks he's a cat. Yeah. He comes to school with his own litter box. This is insane. What happened? What happened with this great story? So this kid thinks he's a cat. He starts rubbing up against one of his classmates. And the kid smacked him. He's like, get off my leg. Smacked him. Yeah. Who got suspended? Kid who smacked him. Oh, but the kid thought he was a cat. related to being a cat, that's okay. Yeah, the kid will smack them because he's rubbing up against them. Yeah, he's not okay. I don't know, again, not advocating violence here for violence sake, for goodness sakes. So we're not talking about that. That's insanity. That's total insanity. I identify with being a cat. Okay, so identify being with a cat. Get your own litter box. You make it, a person goes to the bathroom, inside because he relates to a cat. That's normal. Someone says if zoos allowed, why should they not be allowed? Because you're telling me they're in behind they should be free. They should be free to roam and do whatever. Right? Maybe they're taken from the wild and different things, and made a lot of money from them, and okay. Right? I don't think it's a problem as long as they're not being abused. Now, some people say these animals are abused. Right? I don't know. I saw something recently. Where let's say, dolphins or whales at, let's say, SeaWorld or some of these other places, right? What happens? They claim this tremendous abuse. Whales only eat small fish. They're enclosed in this one area and they get smacked around and different things, right? So there are people who claim it's tremendous abuse. People there are enthralled by it. They'll pay a lot of money to go, to go there to see them and this and that. They say it's total abuse. I don't know. It depends what they're doing to them. If it's real abuse, yeah. There are stores that have these alligator farms. They use alligators for their skins or whatever, right? I remember seeing something a while back where, in a certain place, they abuse them. They make sure they can't move around that much or whatever. I'm not going to go into details what they do, per se, but it's abuse, serious abuse. Again, even if you want to say, to kill them and use their skin for different things, that's permissible. Okay. But you got to keep them in a habitat that's not abusive. So if you tell me, again, it's not my area of expertise, but, if you tell me in zoos, and I could understand where, they're caged up, they can't do what they want, and, and this and that. They really should be in the wild. Is that abuse? Could be. Now, it could very well be. Let's do some research on this. Right. And some people say it's to their benefits, so they'll keep together the species and different things. Whatever. But others may say no, the way they're kept. Doesn't matter how much land they have and different things, they run around and and all that. They can say they're caged. Right? Essentially they're caged. They can't get out. The form of abuse could be. I have to check that. Circuses, I've heard, horror stories. Horror stories, what goes on in the circus. How these animals are totally abused. Yeah, that'd be forbidden. You're gonna say for entertainment. Entertainment, yeah. Who says it's permissible? Who says that's permissible? That's abuse. If that's what it really is, and it sounds like there are, certainly animals in the circus that, and not just they're in cages and different things, they abuse them. Right? So that 100% would be forbidden. So again, in the zoo, if that would be the case, and they're caged in, they can't get out, there are plenty of things they can't do, and it's against their interest, et cetera, and they're just, using them to make money and different things, that could very well be abused. But as far as I understand, I've never seen anyone, whatever, like I said, I'll have to do some research, but I don't remember anyone ever saying going to the zoo is forbidden. Or having zoos, right? Having zoos should be forbidden. Yeah, because in many ways it's there for their protection. Right, in general. And it's to their benefit. So, that wouldn't constitute abuse. But it could be in some cases it is. some cases that, very well may be, again, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that, but I would say it's hard to imagine, if it's something like that, the rabbis would have come out, years ago and say you can't go to the zoo. You're giving money you're perpetuating something that is abuse. So how can you give money to that? How can you support such a thing? So I haven't heard any rabbis come out against it. I mean, I know a lot of people, when the weather's not, certainly not as hot, they take their kids to the zoo. Right? And the most religious of families, I don't see an issue. Right? They don't see an issue. Right? So even, it'd be kind of like, make a little bit of a distinction there. Veal, right? Is veal permissible to eat? Right? So veal, it's kosher, so it's slaughtered, right? You can eat it. What's the problem with veal? If they keep it in small cages, in small areas where they can't get around too much, so the meat is more tender. Right? So there are rabbinical authorities would say you can't eat it. Why not? That's abuse. That's abuse. But if it's ritually slaughtered, again, it's a philosophical issue. If it's ritually slaughtered, can I eat it? Why not? Why can't I eat it? Ritually slaughtered, I should be able to eat it. Right? But there's a technical issue here. Technical issue is look how it's grown. Look how it lives. Listen, you can say that about chickens also, what they do. A lot of times they force feed chickens come out like blimps, within like 2 months, 3 months. They fatten them up so much, and then they slaughter them. People can say that's abuse. That's, forget a kashrus issue. I'm not even talking about, if they can't walk, there might be a problem of, because they get so big so fast, they could trip and fall, and they could rip their tendons or whatever, make them into something that's not kosher. It's a tray, make a tray, right? But I'm not even talking about that issue. Here, a lot of these, a lot of chickens, yeah, they feed them a lot, and within 2-3 months they're like full-grown chickens, and they slaughter them, right? They slaughter them. People would say that's abuse. Why isn't that abuse? No one's coming out and saying can't eat chicken. People may say there's another issue with hormones. That's a whole different issue. Should be allowed to eat chickens that are given hormones. The rabbi once told me it's definitely better to eat organic. But organic's like 2-3 times the price. He goes, what are you going to do? You want to eat chicken. You got to live. You got to live, right? But he didn't say it was an abuse issue. Never said that, right? But that's what it sounds like. Sounds like you're force feeding them to make them fat or very quick. So when you do that, it can't be healthy for them. But no one comes out and says you can't eat chicken because of it. So there's a different issue, right? Somebody mentioned foie gras, right? Liver, duck, or a goose fattened by, force feeding, yeah. I haven't seen, anyone come out and say, well, you shouldn't eat it. That's the way it is. Right, that's what's done, right? So people will say, I've heard people say, heard rabbinic authorities say, veal is kosher, but the way it's kept, you shouldn't eat it, right? Because they're abused. They're abused that way. So then I hear, again, it's a philosophical issue. So it can come, carry over to halacha. That's true. That is very true. But it could very well be an issue that if these things can't walk and they stumble and they rip a tendon in their legs, forget it. You can't eat them. Right? It's impossible. Right? Make it into a treifa. Right? Make it not kosher over here. But a lot of times it's what happens because it saves time. Right? You force feed them. I always say, if you know how things are made, right, when it comes to, let's say, blessings over breakfast cereals and different things, right? If you see, if you know how they're made, you wouldn't eat them. You wouldn't touch them. Doesn't mean it's not kosher, right? But you have to know how they're made in order to know what blessing you make. But a lot of times, this is with anything that's processed. By the way, people think, oh, it's kosher, it's better, it's this, that. It could be, totally unhealthy. Plenty of things, totally unhealthy, even if it's kosher. Yeah, but the problem is, it's a good thing not to think about these things. Why? Because if you thought about things that are processed and you went into a factory, you never touched them. I remember once I was somewhere and I saw how they made the like sucking candies. Right? I won't go into the details what I saw there, but I saw from beginning to end of the process. And I can tell you at the end it comes like, this nice little sucking candy, nice wrapper and all that. But you see how it's made, you're like, I'll pass. Better not to know. If you're gonna eat something processed, don't even think about it. You're just gonna eat it. Right? You should eat healthy, you should eat healthy or whatever, but if you think about how they're made in the first place, you won't eat. Right? 100%. 100%. You're not gonna touch this stuff, but it doesn't mean it's not kosher. Some say the way they take cows and whatever, the way they keep them, it could be Tsar Bar Chaim. It could be. Right? It could very well be that, some places are, these cows are getting abused in different ways. Right? Which again doesn't necessarily render it not kosher. I mean, it's not good, and you have to check to see, after it's slaughtered, make sure there are no, holes in the lungs and other things. Okay, right? It doesn't give you the right to treat them in a bad way. They also have rights to a certain extent. They're human. It's not a question of being human or not. That's not the issue, right? The issue is you can't abuse them. I can eat them, once they're slaughtered, you cut up the meat, take it home and whatever, you can eat it. If it's properly slaughtered, that's not a problem. It's a philosophical issue. It's much more of a philosophical issue. Right? That, again, does that mean the thing itself isn't kosher? No. That's not what it means. Right? It doesn't render it unfit to eat. It's a philosophical issue. Right? That's what it is. A philosophical issue. Right? But I do know certainly by what's it called? By veal, because that's well known. That's well known how they keep them. So yeah, there are rabbinical authorities that say 100% kosher, you could eat it, but philosophically you shouldn't eat it because they causing undue pain. Right? That you're not allowed to do. That'd be the case in the zoo also. You're causing them undue pain, whatever. Yeah, but I haven't seen anyone come out against it. I never heard anyone say you can't go to the zoo, or what they do in zoos is terrible to the animal. Right? I will get into it more. I think it's really a non-issue. Right? They're not allowed to abuse the animals. It's true. But again, the PETA or PETA actors, whatever they're called, they're going to say the fact that they're chained up and they're, they can't get out and this and that, it's terrible for them. We can psychoanalyze, how bad it is and what it does to them and, whatever, but, I've never seen anyone come out and say you can't go to the zoo. They might say looking at non-kosher animals, that's a different issue. Right? You shouldn't look at, non-kosher animals and have non-kosher animals as teddy bears, stuffed animals or different things. Okay, that's a different issue. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that effect. We're talking about the fact that whether it's abuse or not. If it would be abuse, just like by veal, rabbis would come out straight away and say no. Unless you say they're in cahoots with the zoo, so they're getting a kickback to say it's not a problem. So people will go to the zoo and give them livelihood, okay. Right? But in general, they they're not allowed to abuse the animals. That's clear. The only question is, the fact that they can't get out, they can't escape, and this and that, is that a form of abuse? So we don't really care what the pet activists say, or PETA activists, whatever they're called, right? We don't really care what they say. The question is that really abuse, right? So, I look more into it, but I find it very hard to imagine anyone's going to say it's abuse enough in the sense that you should never go to a zoo. I mean, I've never heard such a thing. Not in the Hasidic world, not in the Orthodox world, certainly not in the non-Orthodox world, right? You wouldn't see that. But I'm saying in the Orthodox world, never heard such a thing. Question about having pets is an issue. Having trained animals around is an issue. That I could hear. That I could definitely hear, right? But to say that person should never go to the zoo because they're under abuse. No one's going to say in the zoo themselves they're allowed to abuse them. There's no question that would be forbidden. And according to many commentators, it's a Torah prohibition. It's 100% a Torah prohibition, right? Even if you tell me it's rabbinic, but there are opinions that it's a Torah prohibition. You can't abuse them. And using their skins for different things, I'm allowed to. That's not abuse. We don't hold that's abuse. No matter what anyone else says, that's not abuse. Right? They got to try and do it in a way it's not going to cause them, more pain. Okay. Right? To a certain extent, but I can use them for what I want. Right? And that's where the whole point here is that certainly you're allowed to use them for different things. Before the Mabul. That's what we said before. Before the floods, you weren't allowed to kill them for food. Doesn't say you weren't allowed to kill them in general. Right? It just says over here, right? You weren't permissive, it wasn't permissible to kill them for the sake of eating them. So what would that tell me according to the Sforno? What would that tell me? That means I could kill them for other things. Certainly if they're attacking me, I could kill them, no question. That means I could use them for other things as long as I don't abuse them. But before the flood, I wasn't allowed to kill them. Mankind was not allowed to kill them for the sake of food. That's the point he makes, right? That is the point that the Sforno makes. So everything else we would say they're allowed to, right? It shouldn't be forbidden. 100%, it shouldn't be forbidden over here, right? As long as they're treated in a humane way, right? So you see in general, what does the Torah do? The Torah tells me I also have to respect for animals. Doesn't mean I can't eat them, right? As long as they're ritually slaughtered, I have a right. I can use them for scientific experimentation, cure disease. I have a right. Because animals are given for us, for man to use. As long as what? As long as you don't abuse them. Right? As long as you don't abuse them, very good. If you abuse them, that's serious prohibition. That 100% is serious prohibition. Could even be a total prohibition. Right? People don't necessarily think about this. They're eating their meal, their dog or cat sitting there, wagging their tail or who knows what. Well, you haven't fed them. That's cruel. That's considered cruel. Why? You're gonna say, well, you tell me the Mishnah Sanhedrin says, "B'shvili nivra olam." For me, the world was created, i.e., for me, not for you, certainly not for animals. The animal waits. The animal will wait. No. We know that's cruel. Even if they come to the table after they've eaten, that's a different issue. You fed them. I mean, I have an obligation to give them scraps or other things. That's called cruelty? No. They ate, they drank, their needs are taken care of. Fine. I take care of their needs first. Then my needs come. Right? Otherwise, if you're eating in front of them and they're hungry, that's cruel. Right? That's considered cruel. So that there are laws. There are laws governing this. Right? That there's no question. A person has to be careful. Hunting for the sake of hunting, we mentioned that you're not allowed to do. That's considered cruel. Because there's no purpose in it. You're scaring the animal. You're not doing it for food per se. You're just doing it for the sake of the chase. That's why you're doing it. That makes it forbidden. 100%. That would make it forbidden. It says in the know the Yehuda over there, that's cruel. It's what non-Jews do. That's cruel. So I would say, even for non-Jews, it should apply. Right? Even as a moral imperative. They shouldn't do it. It's cruel. Who said they're allowed to be cruel to other to animals for no reason? That's considered no reason. There's no purpose. If you tell me that a purpose, it's one thing. You have to show it. You have a purpose over here. But if you don't have a purpose, who says it? Then someone's gonna say, "Oh, you see, some Hasidim, they have these fur hats, cost thousands of dollars. How many minks? How many minks it took to make it?" Because that's cruel. Why is that cruel? They're going back to what their forefathers did. Kept discussing wearing these type of hats. Okay. Animals are used for our benefit. If they're used for our benefits, then I could use 100 or 1,000 minks to make this fur hat. That's not cruelty. That totally is not cruel. Let people say what they want. They'll think it's crazy. We have to wear these funny hats. What does the animal do to deserve it? What do you mean? Think about it. Using their skin, again, we won't get gross here, but you're making something that they're using to sanctify God. They wear it on Shabbos. They wear it on a festival. They wear it at a wedding, per se. Again, where it comes from, the whole tradition, okay, it's another issue. But I'm saying, if it's there to sanctify God, so that's a huge thing. So using it for the right purpose. How you gonna tell me it's cruel and this and that? What did the mink ever do to deserve it? Doesn't matter. I can use it for what I want. Is there any difference if I use it to make leather shoes? To make a fur coat? You're gonna say, that doesn't have a purpose. Of course it does. It makes me warmer. Makes me warmer during the winter. A nice fur thing. Why not? Why should that be forbidden? Because it's cruel to the animal. What do I care? Not up to them. It's up to us. And if it's not cruel, I have a purpose, I have a legitimate purpose. And again, you can draw a fine line here. And you can say, well, maybe you want to use it, to keep yourself warm. That's one thing. But who says I'm allowed to use it to make a purse? To make a watch? Shoes? Who says? Then we're going to be grasping at straws here. Maybe for some things it's permissible, other things aren't permissible. The rabbis don't say that. They say it's got a purpose. I can use it as long as it's not abusive. That's not abusive. It's got a purpose. Right? Leather bag has a purpose. Certainly has a purpose. Whether you think it's good or bad, I don't care. It's got a purpose. Again, I think on both sides people have gone way out of whack over here. First of all, again, we can use it for what I want as long as it's not abusing them. Okay. But there are other people go to the deep end. Big time leftists say, no, animals have rights. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't, If you abuse them, I agree. But what's the term of abuse? They'll say, I can't make them into a purse. Can't have my alligator purse. Right? Can't have my fancy bag or whatever. They'll say that's abuse. That's real abuse. Right? And what's the Torah say? What the rabbis tell us? No. It has a purpose, but it goes so far. It's a mind-boggling thing. I do understand. I made fun of it, but I do understand, where people come from and why they have, such a connection. Why they have such a connection to an animal, it's like the family. I get it. I think people went overboard on that also. Way overboard. You see videos, dogs wearing tefillin. For goodness sakes. Have half a brain. They're not human. Animal, some people say, no, they have feelings, different things. Okay, I'm not saying necessarily they don't. You can't punch them around and beat them up and different things. Okay. But an animal, like any animal, like a plant, like a tree, like anything else, what are they? They're programmed. They have programmed DNA for me to use as I want. But to get attached like a family member, I understand how it happens. Definitely understand how it happens. I understand it's like, well, I think it's way out of line. It's all the time. All the time. People post things, my cat, my dog, my this, how cute, look what they do. And it's overboard. That's the only expression I can use. It's insanity. It's insanity. I understand, but it's, they're not human. They're just not. And people make things out to, people make out things that it's not reality. It's totally not reality. They don't have the same type of soul. They just don't. They're there for us to use, right? So there's a famous idea. That animals are created before man, right? You look in creation, animals come before man. So if mankind does what they're supposed to do, they elevate their soul by keeping Torah mitzvahs, going against their evil inclination, then mankind is the pinnacle of creation. No question. Mankind's the greatest of all creation. If man goes according to their evil inclination, into their base desires, then animals are better. Why? Because they were created first. Right? That's the idea. If we give into our animalistic instincts that are bad for us, then we're no different than animals. We're no better than animals. If we use the good inclination to overcome the evil inclination and to keep Torah mitzvahs and to do to be the best we can be, and that helps overcome the evil inclination, very good, then we're greater than animals. It depends what we use it for. Totally depends what we use it for. But I think there are a lot of people out there that, they missed the boat. And they say, animals just as valid as humans. And that's just not true. That's not what the Torah says at all. We're allowed to use animals. You sprinkle their blood, you put them on the altar, right? Some of them are burnt offerings. What happened to their rights? It has nothing to do with their rights. God says they have no rights. God's saying do it. That's their obligation. Totally obligation. Yeah. They don't have a choice. Some animals used for this, some animals used for that, some birds, some this, whatever. You're not given a choice. God said this is what you do. Take the animal, carve it up, put it on the altar. Yeah. Don't eat the fats. Don't put some of these things on the altar. Okay. Right? But that's a divine command. Oh. So what about the animal rights? The Torah here say anything? We're speaking for months, for years. The Book of Leviticus and all these sacrifices. Did the Torah ever say anything about animals having rights? No. God made a command. This is what you do with the animal. This is what you do with the goat. This is what you do with an ox. With the cow, whatever. This is what you do. They ever saying anything? No. The divine command. Total divine command. Yeah. So they're used in a way to sanctify God's name by putting them on the altar, by having a burnt offering, by giving a sin offering. Right? Is it their fault? No, it's not their fault. But they're part of the process of sanctification, of atonement, of all kinds. You take this goat Azazel, right, which we spoke about quite a bit. Yeah, this goat that's like thrown out to the desert, it's going to fall off a cliff or however it's going to die. People are going to say it's also cruel. That King's atonement for the Jewish people. Right? So, whatever, it gains atonement. It's not a sacrifice per se. You're going to say there's also cruel. Right? It's going to go out there and die. How many number of deaths it's going to die? Divine command. You're going to say God is cruel. God is, bloodthirsty. We make all kinds of statements and, okay, let people talk. But at the end of the day, God sends them out. It's part of the Yom Kippur service, by the way. Holiest day of the year. The high priest, slaughters the animal, right? Goes in the Holy of Holies, gains atonement for the Jewish people, right? For his family, for the Jewish people. And that goat also. So, imagine the holiest day of the year. If there was a temple in Jerusalem, this goat gets sent out to die however it's going to die. Off a cliff. Who knows? Whatever it's going to die. Yeah, but it's certainly going to die. No question. Where's the justice? Where's everybody claiming, oh, that house is there, look what happened to it. That is so mean, it didn't deserve it. It's the holiest day of the year. God's telling you that's what you do on the holiest day of the year. Well, that's not my God, that's cruel. Okay, so people have their own opinion. That's a divine command. That's what the high priest, the holiest person of the Jewish people, that's what he's doing on Yom Kippur. Besides going into the Holy of Holies and bringing a sacrifice, he's also doing that. The holiest person, of the Jewish people at that time is sending this goat out. Pretty mind-boggling when you think about it. People say, come on, that's backwards, that's ignorance, that's this. This is the holiest day of the year for the Jewish people. Right? Because if Yom Kippur fell on Shabbos, you fast on Shabbos. It's the only time you ever fast on Shabbos. Every other fast that would come out on Shabbos, right, which no other fast comes out on Shabbos per se, but even if it would, you push it off. You push it off. Like the 9th of Av would come on Shabbos on Saturday, you don't fast till at night. You don't fast on Shabbos except on Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, I can speak about it for a long time. We're not going to do that. The point is, the holiest day of the year, God sends his goat out, tells the high priest, send the goat out, and that's it. It's going to die however it dies. Holiest day of the year. That's cruel. You want to tell me God's cruel? Okay, so you don't understand. Divine commands. Our puny heads can't figure these things out. We have to delve into it. We have to try and understand it to the best of our ability. But God's telling you, take this goat. Take one, you're going to sacrifice, you're going to gain atonement. Take this other goat and send it to 100 different ways, it's going to die. Send it out to the desert, let all the forces in the desert destroy it, whatever it's going to be, fall off a cliff, who knows what, whatever it's going to be. Divine command. People will say, oh, that's backwards. Okay, so you understand God better than God. Yeah, that's what I would say. Someone asks, I'll take some questions here before we finish. Somebody asks, person does what the rabbi says to do. Okay. Hopefully they do listen. That's very good. It's a good start. What happens if on Judgment Day, based in of Shamayim, in heaven, judges that the rabbi's opinion was wrong? Very good. Good question. Will the student be found guilty, i.e. guilty for following the opinion of the rabbi? So there's such a thing. There's a question. I'm asking it a little bit different way. There's a question that comes up. Let's say someone comes, takes a DNA test. Yeah. We don't hold by a DNA test. Right? We don't hold by a DNA test. If someone has proof, either 4 generations buried in the synagogue or they were, B'nai Anusim, they fake converted to Christianity and were really secret Jews, and they have Jewish surnames and whatever, or they have a marriage document to prove it, to prove that they're Jewish, or 3 or 4 generations buried in a Jewish cemetery, which they probably can't prove anyway. Yeah. So you tell this person they have the status of a non-Jew. Yeah. They have an obligation to break Shabbos. Right? They have an obligation to break Shabbos because they're not Jewish. They don't have proof. Now, someone comes along and says, what if I found out I'm really Jewish? Right? What if I find out I'm really Jewish? You told me to break Shabbos. So now you get all those transgressions. Not true. Why is it not true? Because we say a person has what we call chazakah. What's a chazakah? Chazakah means you go according to the way you see it right now. According to right now, does the person have proof? Again, we're going to make this very simple. Does the person have proof that they're Jewish? No. They don't have proof. They don't have ample proof. So you call it the way you see it. They don't have ample proof, right? And many times, Code of Jewish Law says the rabbis call it the way they see it. So in that case, the person has the status of being a non-Jew because they don't have proof. They don't have proof. It doesn't matter if they find it 10 years later, 20 years later. At the time, they don't have proof. So what's their status? Let's ask the question. What is their status? Their status is they're not Jewish. That's their status, right? They have what we call chazakah. There's no proof. They don't have any proof right now. So they're obligated to break Shabbos. Now, if there was some other proof substantial proof, but they don't have all the proof. If there would be substantial proof that they were actually Jewish, then they'd have an obligation to say, okay, you're probably Jewish, so don't break Shabbos, right? They probably convert them very quickly because they probably have ample enough proof to show that they're Jewish. Okay, that's a different issue. But you go by what you see. So therefore, now the question is, the person listening to what the rabbi said, if they get upstairs to heaven, let's say they were wrong. Let's say they were wrong. Yeah, so they're in big trouble. It depends what they're wrong on also. Right? You never ask me easy questions. This is a complicated question. The question is what they make a mistake in. Did they make a mistake in something egregious? Like, in other words, they missed something obvious? Did they have the status that we call an expert according to the majority? In other words, they could, really, you need a base in the three. You need a rabbinical court of three to decide laws of, marriage, divorce, laws of damages. Let's say, what if you have someone who's a world-class expert in the laws of damages? Let's say, world-class expert. Yeah, he could judge himself. Now, there are very few today that would have that status. There were some people, previous generations had that status. But let's say a person decided to go to them for a question. They made a mistake. Now, the question is, in general, we say they're exempt. They're exempt from pay. Now, it depends also, this again, I'm going to oversimplify, but it's extremely complicated. when I was going up north, I spent weeks going through this because there are a lot of different opinions over here, what the mistake is. If it's a mistake, let's say, if the rabbinical court made a mistake in something that's not something egregious, not something obvious, most likely they're going to be exempt. Most likely. It depends who makes up the Beis Din, what level of knowledge they have. I mean, it's dependent on a lot of factors. So if it be something that they really missed the boat on, something obvious, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. Are they going to be guilty for giving the wrong opinion? Yes. They will be guilty later. 100% they'll be guilty later. But I'm going to preface it, as we said before, I'm going to preface it and say it depends on what they did. It depends on what the mistake was. Right? If it's a serious mistake that they really should have known, yeah, then the punishment is severe. They may have to pay out of their own pocket, different things. Right? They may be guilty, of different things. If it's something that's, let's say they thought the halacha was one way and really went according to a different opinion, right? They missed that opinion. Okay, that's not necessarily something egregious. If they missed something obvious, they missed a verse in the Torah. That's egregious. They missed an obvious Mishnah or an obvious Gemara that totally, that totally uprooted what they said. That's egregious, right? If it's something where they missed, they just went the wrong way. They thought the halacha was like this and it was like somebody else and whatever. So that's less egregious, right? So the question is, if that's the case, are they going to be liable to pay or not, right? In this case, what if? So use the previous example. Let's say this person didn't have enough proof that they were Jewish. The rabbi said, "You're not Jewish. You got to break Shabbos." But really, they found out, they missed something, and really the person was Jewish. Yeah, are they going to have to pay the price? The question is, I don't think so. I still don't think so. Why? Because they go according to what they see. If what they see in front of them, the information in front of them shows X, yeah, they're not going to be held accountable. They will not be held accountable in such a case. Right? Not at all. Right? They'll never be held accountable. Right? Why not? Because they're going according to what they see. 6 months down the line, a year down the line, 5 years down the line, the person now has proof We don't say, and again, this is a mistake a lot of people make. You do not say retroactively the rabbis were wrong 5 years before. You don't say that because they didn't have the proof. Once, again, you're going to judge the case in what you see in front of you. And if what you see in front of you is not ample proof, then they have status of a non-Jew. It's nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about. No one disagrees with this. No rabbinic authority disagrees with this. And even if you find out 6 years later that really the person had ample proof, right? Now he finds proof or uncovers it, or she uncovers it, that does not overrule what they said 6 years before. Not at all. It does not overrule it. Why not? Because they go according to what they see. Right? That would be the answer. Now, if someone asks, I'll also be including someone who's following the Reform rabbi and her rulings. I like that, her rulings or his rulings, right? Either way, right? Either way. So that rabbi is leading them astray. So he's going to get a more severe punishment, right? But you're also forbidden to listen to what they say, right? I just heard someone ask the question, well, it's actually a different type of question because they grew up not knowing anything. They desecrated Shabbos, they're going to have to pay the price now if they repent. What price they're going to have to pay. They have to pay something, right? But they grew up knowing nothing. What if they grew up following someone that was a heretic or following someone they never should have followed, right? So that's an issue, right? That is definitely an issue. So, a person who follows someone that they shouldn't follow or is forbidden to follow, they make their own choice, but they're going to say they got carried away. What about all the people, they'll make a big distinction. What about all the Christians? They're all led astray, right? Right? Anyone's listening probably been thrown out of the church because they had questions. So you got to have faith, you got to believe, you got to this, you got to that, right? That's why they keep everybody ignorant. But yeah, they're all being brainwashed. All the Hindus are all being brainwashed. Everyone's being brainwashed over here, right? So you're going to say, well, is it their fault? So what's one of the Noahide laws? Idolatry. I got questions, people in India, Bangladesh, all these places, right? They've come to the truth, right? Some people have come to the truth. They can find it. What about all these other people? They're brainwashed. Totally brainwashed. What about the people that are brainwashing them? Right? They're just as liable. There's no question. They're believing it. They're not questioning it. God gave them a brain to question. Does it make sense to worship a cow? It doesn't make so much sense to worship a cow. Right? They'll give you different spins on it, what it means, what it represents, the karma, and this. Okay, whatever it is. Whatever it is, I don't really care. But they're caught up in, like I had someone tell me once, oh, it's so cruel. Why are they all going to die? Because God gave them a brain. God gave them a brain. So if they follow Reform rabbi, God also gave them a brain. Don't you see? It doesn't make sense. Don't you see? You get nowhere. You chop up the service, you do this, you that. How does that make sense? Oh, but they're brainwashed accordingly. They don't question anything. Okay, that's their problem. That 100% is their problem. The Reform rabbis leading them astray, that's a severe punishment. That's called Machti Yasarabah. It's causing other people to sin. That's a different, he's in real trouble, or she's in real trouble. The Reform movement started, the whole thing was to uproot Judaism. That's a really severe thing. That's a really severe thing. But they can also, a person can always get brainwashed. They didn't know any better. Yeah, so if they repent, very good. If they come to the truth, very good. They're still going to pay a price later at some point. They'll pay some price, right? Depending on what they did, so they could pay a severe price in certain ways. Very good. Very well could be. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, personally, leading them astray is worse. But God gave everyone a brain also, right? They're following the wrong people. And there are people out there, unfortunately, they get involved in cults and different things. Yeah. Yeah. They get persuaded, all kinds of things. Okay. Are they guilty? Sure, they're guilty. Sure, they're guilty, but they're being brainwashed. Okay. God gave them a brain also. Right? I just read recent articles. People got sucked into bad therapists, and they weren't even therapists, and it's really very cultish and different things. And people tried to convince them to come out of it. They couldn't, or whatever. They felt, they got sucked in. They got sucked in without going into all that. but they got sucked in. They get sucked in also. And God gave everyone free choice. You want to make a mistake, God won't stop you. If you want the truth, God will help you. Very good. But it's easy to get sucked in. Very easy to get sucked in. But in this case, the Reform rabbi is worse because he's telling people to uproot Judaism. So he's causing other people to sin. He's causing other people to sin. That's for sure. Yeah, the other people following them are also guilty at some level. They have to repent, there's no question. They certainly have to repent. Right? But yeah, so this is worse because you go see the wrong people. That's why it's so crucial. Anyone in this process, whether it's a JIT, Jew in training, or a Noahide, you got to get the right information. You got to be by right people. Otherwise, there's a lot of crackpots out there, right? Especially in the Noahide world, I've seen a lot of crackpots out there. You got to be careful to listen to, right? It's all about credentials. It's all about who you learned under, right? It's about what you're giving over, right? That's what it's about. And a person, quote unquote, call themselves Orthodox or this and that, and they could just totally lead people astray in the wrong direction. Very well could, no question about it. So you got to be careful in that sense who to listen to as well. Yeah, that's what I would say. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Again, it's good to be back. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook, Mark Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Torah Portion of the Week, Q&As, Pirkei Avos, Ethics of Our Fathers. Also, hopefully next week, starting my one-on-ones, spiritual coaching and group coaching. Again, how to deal with all kinds of different issues people go through. Difficulties, whether it be by livelihood or health issues or family issues or whatever people want to have difficulties in life with, based on Torah sources, a lot on the Ramchal, Derech Hashem, Path of the Just, and also duties of the heart. So anyone interested in that should send me send me a text, send me an email. You want to email me, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, which I'm a good beginning of the day.